Hi guys. So this we'll do a different YouTube intro because yours is just an interview.
Okay.
Hi guys. This is we're doing a little different this time around. We have the we have the lovely Grace. Say your last name for us. Yeah, and she's a director. So hers is more, she gets all the deep questions. All the way when you hear her talk, you know what I mean. You know why it's an interview.
All right.
Love it. I even hope it was focused. Ready?
Yes.
All right. Let me hold this. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Grace Faye-Chaton, and I am a screenwriter and director, so filmmaker.
Okay, filmmaker. First question for you is, how would you define creativity, and do you consider yourself to be a creative person?
Okay. Defining creativity, I would say that creativity is like the ability to express like knowledge, information, perception, all in the form of art, and to do it responsibly. And so, would I define myself to be creative? I now would definitely define myself as a creative.
You now would? Why would you not in the past?
I think it's hard. I think creativity is hard. I was not like good at like drawing. I wasn't great at, mostly that, honestly, like drawing and coloring and art, like that.
Do you think that, that version of creativity?
Yeah.
Now you know it's not just limited to just...
Exactly.
Okay. And then how does your faith affect your creative work? Or do you think it does?
No, 100% does. I think that part of the reason, or really true, maybe even the whole reason why I've wanted to come into this space in the first place is because I felt that the responsible piece, right, of art, specifically filmmaking, sometimes doesn't always sit at the forefront of people's minds. So for me, that like integrity of like how images, or I wanted to have integrity about how I could float certain images around, right? Because we know that images stick. We know that people view images and think of themselves or their surrounding. And so for me, it was really about how can I bring my faith in, which is the construct of my life, right? And put that out for others to see themselves, right? And relate to it, but it be done with that marker of responsibility.
Has like your faith always been like at the forefront of, so like actually when did you get started like being a filmmaker? Into filmmaking?
Seriously, a little over 3 years ago. I wrote when I was younger. I didn't really understand what I was doing. I just knew that I enjoyed writing. And at that point, I was writing for representation without even knowing that the term that I was looking for was representation. And so that's when I like spent crazy amount of hours. I was young. I was 9, and I would
9 and you were writing? Dang.
Yeah. The first piece I wrote was
do you still have it?
I do not.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, pull it up.
No. We thank God. It was honestly a hate piece. I was in my feelings about a friend who, what's it called? Had just like done me dirty. And I was just like, oh, you getting written about.
Don't want to be in her diary. Like.
But then I did creative writing in like 2009. So I was 12 when I picked up creative writing, and I didn't know format. I didn't know structure. I know what I was doing. I didn't really process that screenwriting was a thing that could be done as a job. So I just wrote, and like it went from writing for a few minutes here to writing for a few hours into days. And then like I realized I was spending my entire summer writing. And then it was like school started. I was like, well, I don't want to stop writing, so I'm just going to continue. And for years, I just wrote up until I'll say probably about 16, 17 when I started working. Well, I started working a little bit earlier than that, but when I started working more, and there just wasn't enough time to go to school, work, and write as often as I wanted to.
Yeah.
So, well, then I went to college. Definitely didn't write, but that thought about writing was always in the back of my mind. And so I just like let it fizzle out up until 2020, let's say January or February. I watched They've Gotta Have Us, and I was like, oh, well, it's finished. I can't ignore this thing that's been in me since I was 9. And so that's when I started to take it seriously in 2020.
Dang. So then, what is your creative process like? And like, where do you drive your inspiration for your ideas of what you create from?
Good. Creative process, it's a disaster. Actually, a lot of it now is kind of trusting the education piece of it, right? So if an idea comes up, which I guess I can answer that now, I'm inspired by life. So there are projects that I write that have come from a moment in time where I'm just like, this deserves being explored. But I'll be frank and say that I'm inspired by Black people. I'm inspired by children. I'm inspired by families. I'm inspired by how, like the development of a person who is Black. All of that just is a huge driving force, but it's also like part of what I studied. So like, well, I live it too, right?
Yeah.
So there's what I see in the books and the cause and effect that maybe not everyone knows how to articulate, but I want to be able to showcase that through a film, right? Because apparently that's where everyone's ability to empathize goes, right? Into like filmmaking, and they understand that. So if that's the language that you speak, let me speak this language with you. And so that's where it comes from. And essentially the process is probably skipping steps first. I try to get to the writing piece of it as quickly as possible, and it almost never works because then I have to go back to step 1 and do the outline and do the research. Who are these characters? Why do I feel this way? I would say that one thing that I started probably a year or more ago, was a writing diary. And it's because Scott Meyer said to keep a writing diary because what you can do is before you start writing anything, you go to the diary and there are no like rules for the diary, right? But when you're screenwriting, you're worried about format, structure, whether it is following your, whether your acts are in the right place. Like if you're doing everything the way you're supposed to, but in a diary, you can do what you want. And so break the barrier by writing your diary first and then going into all the other things. And so I would say something consistent in that is just I write in my diary and then or my screenwriting diary difference, right? Because what you're doing there is writing like, okay, I'm afraid of tackling this character because they remind me too much of myself. So let's really talk about it. Or I don't want to do this because honestly, I don't want to write 15 pages. I don't want to write 15 pages. And then we'll get into like, so why haven't, like if you've written hundreds of pages, why is it so hard to write 15 now? Or, okay, this act sucks. It's not working. And genuinely, these are my intentions with this, right? And so that's a really good part of the process. And I think it's 100% helpful. And then I just will do the work. So whether it's an outline or research, journaling, observations, all of that gets thrown into the process until you sit down and you go, I have enough information. I can write this. And so I've written like full pilots, 50 pages in like 3 days. But it's because there's
50 pages?
Yeah, I love writing. Girl, summers, I'm telling you, as soon as I get up, let's go to the computer and start typing. So, I mean, my word count was impressive in like I think 7th grade or something. People were like, how can you type so much? It's like, this is all I do, right? It's what I enjoy. And so, and immersing myself into the characters for sure. Once you get that groove, once you've done the research, once you've done the outline, when you know where you're starting and where you're going, to like, fully like become a character in the writing process or even several characters is so energetic. I'm so hyped in the midst of writing a scene that's like, especially when it's like the rising action or the climax, that stuff is great. Or even the rest of anything is
fantastic. One thing you said was that like when you say like, oh, why this character is the way you are, like the way you created your characters, do you think have you had to do a lot of, it seems like you've had to do a lot of like internal evaluation and just like know yourself to know your character type thing. Is there like moments where you were writing a certain character and it taught you more about yourself than you could have imagined?
Yeah, 100%. There's one, there's one I can't even, I've had this idea for 2.5 years, still can't write it to this day because it's like, it requires me to do more healing. It's not cliche, whatever.
No, it's not cliche. No, it's the truth.
It requires me to do more healing and to really make myself vulnerable. And so the times where I am able to write it is when I put myself in situations that are uncomfortable because it's not a place that I've been before. And so that's exactly what the character is going through. And anytime that I'm too comfortable, I honestly can't write it. And even when I'm uncomfortable, it's hard to write it. I remember I was sitting down at the computer. It was late last year and I went,
you tried to attempt it and you're like, no.
I was doing it and I was like, this is intense. Like it was one of those times where I definitely could relate to the character, or characters, because I was writing from about a relationship. And so it was interesting to me how I could relate to both because they're not the same. And I went, wow, the nuances of the life of a human, right?
Dang. Because if you're writing like female characters, is there a different mindset when you're writing male characters and how they behave? And is there a lot of research and study that you do?
Yeah.
So even develop guy parts.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that like, one, I try not to limit the men, right? Yeah. Because I think that one thing is it's part of the reason why I talk to people so often and why I think that sometimes people may think that like I'm forward or invasive. Sometimes it's character study, but it's also like I care about people. And so when I ask questions or dig deeper or just, when I ask questions or dig deeper, it's really because I want to understand the why of who you are. And so in my life, I've been able to, maneuver or navigate relationships with guys because I understand their why. And then, it just helps me to understand a man because I can only live as a woman, right? Yeah. That is what I am. And so when I go to writing guys, I just kind of remember the why, their humanity, their feelings, and the fight, right, to express those, or those who are completely able to do it without any kind of, conflict, if that makes sense, which I don't know if anyone does it without any conflict, but yeah. And so I'm also gifted with a brother, right? Yeah. We have a great relationship and he's very honest. And so I think that writing guys is quite a bit of work, but it's just as satisfying as writing the person that I understand, right? Writing a woman. And even in that, right, I am a woman, but there are so many kinds of women. And so it's not taxing, it's a task regardless of who I'm writing for.
Okay. Okay, so then I'm going to ask you to read Colossians 3:17.
Yeah.
I'll give you your phone and then you can tell me what you think about it, 3:17 and 23, and what you think that means to you, and I guess in relation to just directing and everything.
Yeah. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, you're good to go.
So Colossians 3:17, and whatever you do in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. And then 23 says, whatever you do, do it from the heart as something done for the Lord and not for people.
Okay. What does that mean? What does that mean?
I think now, I don't want to misquote nobody. What that means now is, to me now, is this idea that like people can only take you so far. So by depending on them, you almost set yourself up for failure. Whereas if you do everything unto the Lord, based on his direction, the knower of it all, the creator of it all, the one who sees before you, the one who sees before everyone, you're in much better hands. Yeah. Right? That's kind of the only way towards like complete success. And we're talking about the one who can manage 8 billion lives at a single time. Yeah. I'm struggling with my one. I'm sure that the people I'm talking to are struggling with their one too, you know? Yeah. And so it really actually makes no sense to try to appease everyone, right? You can't. It's impossible. Yeah. Everything in the name of the Lord. I think that it also means, right? It goes back to like when you, is it Matthew? Is it Matthew that talks about wearing Christ? Matthew 28. I could be wrong, but like just in my study of like baptism, discipleship, and fruit of the Spirit, at one point it talks about wearing Christ, right? Like, so you're dying to your flesh, you're dying to your old self. You are a new creation. What do you wear? And it's, well, Christ. I think that if you are carrying his name, like, I don't even want to say a badge, because a badge, like, I guess, yeah, you can see a badge, but if you miss it, you miss it, right?
Yeah.
Almost like, more like your clothes or skin, just something that can be seen at a distance. I think that if you're going to wear him, you should, you better, wear it right.
Yeah.
And so that's why I talk about responsibility and integrity when it comes to art and filmmaking, because there's just no way that I could sit back and know that like people's ideas are shifting because I put something out there, and I can't even stand by it.
Yeah.
I also don't want to get to the gates and God's like, yeah, what was that? Just like,
not the gates and where I was at. Yeah.
so yeah.
Okay. So then where does your passion for film / directing come from? Where did it, or is the root of the dream?
This is a lot of credit. I'm not gonna lie. This is way too much credit for this show. But
Okay.
the reason why I said it was like 2009 is because that's when the 90210 reboot came out. And I mean, at that time, one, I had no business watching that, but whatever. Watched it, loved it. And I just always went, well, this isn't my reality, right? And I just wanted to write something much closer to my reality, which is why I said that representation mattered to me way before I understood that it mattered. I wanted something with more diversity. Like, that was really the staple. I was just like, I don't go to school. I mean, I do go to school with white people. I don't go to school with this many white people. I like also know Hispanic people and Asian people.
Yeah.
And so, and of course that's not where it ends, but like, I saw so much more, and I didn't understand why I had to continue to feast on a school about wealthy white people that I can't relate to that.
Yeah.
Like, it's entertaining, but I can't relate to that. And so it was from watching that show that I went, I want to see something that I can relate to. And thankfully, in the 14 years since, there's been a lot more content. But that's where it started. I think that also, I remember watching movies on Saturdays and not knowing that I had an interest, but I had an interest in dramas, right? So CW or WB, whatever it was, that had movies on Saturdays. I had an interest in dramas and would take a liking to those. And then just as technology became more of a thing, watching a movie and then doing the research, and not just wanting to know about the actors, but wanting to know what production was like. Okay, what are the relationships being built here? How much did it cost and how much did it make? Is that successful? Like, my questions were no longer like just about the movie, but about the creation of it. And I wanted to start putting pins in things and recognizing the relationships beyond what that was. And then being like, once you got enough information, okay, if this is what a $5 million budget film looks like, and you see that enough, and then you see something that's $100 million.
Dang, you really do your research.
Well, now I got
I mean, yeah, I was like, dang, I'm just like, this is a great movie.
But I want to know why.
Yeah,
right? I want to know why this film is slower paced, or why there's less locations, and you realize it's because of a budget. So you just start to see things a whole lot differently. That's why, like, watching movies now is not the fun that it used to be.
Yeah,
because it's an observation of like, so how can I get there? But I will say it started innocently. It was great. It was beautiful.
Yeah. So clearly you a lot of personal experience has influenced like the work that you create. Can you give an example of one life experience that has influenced your writing both positively or negatively? Or from the development of your character or whatever?
I think I can, yeah. I'm not very, yeah, I can. And the question is about things that I've experienced.
Yeah, for your personal life. Because that's obviously heavily influenced in your work.
Okay, I got one. So I talk about, and I can't mention too much because it's a work in progress right now. That's like my money maker.
Okay.
one thing I talked about how family, like Black people, have a lot of influence over what I write. I found a pattern in that I created a lot of dramas about families that weren't always the most functional. And so I went, what is that? Because I didn't know what was happening up until I think late last year. And I was like, I don't think I ever write about just this joyous family that like everything's great and like the drama is some external factor. It's always internal. What's going on within the household? Whether that's I think that has positively, which is crazy. I think that like the work having an effect on me or my life. No, it's my life having an effect on the work.
Yeah.
I realized what it was my perception of what I was experiencing being put into the work. And I honestly think it's positive. And the reason why is because every time I go back to, let's say, the word, to be like, how do I want to, if somebody put all the money that it's supposed to have behind this project and it went to 1 million screens, what would I want people to see in this dysfunction that is still giving God the glory, that is still in tune with his word? And so that's why I say it's positive, because it's then required me to figure out how I'm going to act in these particular situations. It requires me to go into the work and be like, I'm not like going to brush this with this cute little Christian paintbrush and then like everything's fine, right? Right. We're not creating Christian films, but films with Christian principles, if that makes sense. And so the exploration of it is super intense. That's why I say it's positive, because it's not simple. It's hard. So I read the word and then I read the word and then I read the word. I keep reading the same thing until it finally clicks. And then it makes sense. So I say that because there's a particular project I'm working on now about a mother and a son, and their relationship. And it starts off so great and we watch the downfall and it's so tragic and I love it.
I'm screaming.
But it's because we see how it happens. And I do believe that everything is in tune, right? Because I'm taking the word like children, obey your father and your mother, but also like parents don't piss your kids off. The word don't say piss your kids off. They say that, right? So that they don't become like discouraged or something like that. And I think that, navigating that, why would I not love doing that?
So then do you do a lot of like, do you base a lot of your work off of scriptures or I guess it's back again to that inspiration piece? Because I mean, that you just related that back to. Yeah.
Because I don't think that I could write if it didn't make sense with scripture. If it quite literally is opposing scripture, and then I'm like, and I want millions of dollars to go behind this and millions of people can see it, I'm going to have to answer for that. Like that goes back to like, this all has to be done with integrity and like, I have to be responsible for those things. I don't necessarily get in line with people who produce art and they're like, and they abdicate themselves from that responsibility. I think that's insane. That is absolutely insane. If your vision came to life and had an impact on people, you're responsible, right? If you're going to be responsible or if you're going to take credit for how much money it brought in, if you're going to take credit for being able to get actors to do a certain thing, if you're going to take credit for words being on the screen, then you have to take credit for the impact as well. And I'm not saying that means you feast on every single comment that comes your way. Absolutely not. But I'm saying that if there's an overall movement based off of your art, there is no denying that impact. And so, it's yours.
Dang. Okay, then with that, what have you learned from directing / filming that you would say developed other skills within you besides directing and filming? Like the process type thing?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think one thing is resilience, especially in like the last year. I don't think I've ever been as tried as I have.
The trialing.
The rejections are crazy. The switch ups are crazy. Like the way that I'm having to navigate relationships, the content that I want to consume, that I want to make, all of that is starting to shift in a very real way. And it's because I had this experience where we shot for a weekend. And I remember this is probably like one of the more elaborate sets that I've been on. And I remember I woke up one day, it was like I think we had to be ready to go by like 6:30 or something. So I wake up and it's like 5:30 and I'm just like, so this is when it becomes work. This is what it 5:30? Like. Yeah.
Dang.
And I remember being in the shower, so tired. I'm like, so happy.
You're like, this is great.
Yeah. But I think that, like I said, because that was a little over a year ago, that now having to focus in more on the writing part, right? You're in communities or you're applying for things, whether it's grants or funding or to be in a program.
Yeah.
And to be told no so many times. Like, I started to question it. So I think that just the resilience, like I had a moment a couple of weeks ago where I was like, I'm done with film. I'm done. I'm so tired.
Dang.
But we're still here. LOL. We're still here.
Still pressing on.
We are.
Dang. Oh, so then when you create, do you create with the intent to send a message? And if so, how important is it for your audience?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like you do. Always intentional. Very intentional, but how important is it for your audience to understand the message?
Really important. Otherwise, I'd just be creating for myself. And I'm not doing that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Earlier I stated that this is a language I'm trying to speak. The reason why I go so in depth into the learning process is because I want to understand everyone who's involved with the making of it and everyone who's involved with the consumption of it. Because if I want to communicate with you, I have to know what the buzzwords are, what the trigger words are, what is basic level foundational understanding. I have to know those things so that I know that, so that I can be confident in the times where it's now open to the public and comments are flowing in, right? If I can stand by the fact that this was my target audience, my target audience understands the message, then everyone else, you can go by the wayside. If it's more of, and I guess it's kind of crazy to say, but if it's an exercise, right? Like if I want to talk to actors about like, this is the possibilities of what you can push yourself to do, right? Without compromising your integrity, without compromising your integrity, then that's who I'm speaking to, right? And I have to know what it is that they're receptive to and what it is that they're running from in order to be able to have that conversation. Yeah, that answers the question.
Yeah. So, when you first started like creating and putting your work out there, was your work at first accepted, or was it like, did it take some effort for you on your part to be like recognized by others, or take you seriously? I guess since you started at a young age, and then like you had to take yourself first seriously, or other people.
For sure. Yeah. One, I guess I'm still waiting for it to be recognized, but then I have to be honest with myself. Have I put out anything that's worth being recognized? I do not say that to discredit the work that me and others have put in. But I'm saying that like even the mode of distribution has been, okay, it goes on social media, it's on YouTube. That's not necessarily where you are pushed into the industry. That just means, oh, this is a terrible thing to say. It's not content, but it's almost in the vein of content versus being a film that's on the festival circuit or that has some sort of distribution on some streaming platform, right? If I had those, then maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But with that being said, I still think that everyone who has put in work into what I have done has done it so beautifully. And what I've learned from them, not everyone, excuse me. Most people that I've worked in on personal projects, on personal projects. When I work on other projects, it's been different. And so to answer the other part of the question, which is getting into the real of feeling slighted or disrespected or like I haven't been heard, that has happened. Yeah, when I haven't worked on my own project, when I haven't been able to handpick the people, I've experienced that. People do look at me and they're like, oh, she's young and she's Black and she's a woman. She must not know what she's talking about. You will get put in check.
Yep.
You will get put in check. And that's because I remember I was on set once.
Okay, set. All right.
Love the people now. Well, I'm strong. I respect the people now, right? But the way they came for me was different. And so I got to direct a scene, and as the director's job, you call cut or you call action cut. You know when you want to start based on your actors, and you know where you want to end based on your actors. And then you know because of the entire vision. The camera crew, for whatever reason, undermined my ability to know that. I call action, somebody calls cut, and I cannot tell you what I said. I cannot tell you what I said, but I fixed it.
She corrected it. Yeah.
And by the end of the day, they definitely came up to me. They were like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. And the crazy part is that we share many demographics. And so that was one example. And another example, very similar, somebody who just wouldn't like, I know I'm not Spielberg. I get that. But if you are working on a project, and once again, I'm the director, and you just don't want to communicate with me, or you feel as if my words do not matter, you kind of go rogue, I don't understand what you're here for. Yeah. Right? Like, what part of it do you not believe in? Because if you see the vision for the thing, right? Or maybe you're here because you don't see the vision and you just want a paycheck. I can treat you like that too. I've had to be a manager of employees and staff. I know how to do that too. But if we're here to create something for if we're here with artistic integrity, I just expect you to show up with that. So I've had to actually even learn how to navigate the situations. Because that one was even different. I felt even more disrespected than I had before. Somebody called cut, and I was just like, no. And this person I can't even begin to explain what they did, but it was hands down probably the worst experience that I had on set. And I'm just like, it changed who I wanted to work with, and it made me go, like, actually pause. Yeah. Right? I don't have to deal with this. Yeah.
Dang. So then on the positive end, is there people like who do you admire and why? Right. What creative people do you admire? And
like well-known people?
Whoever, it doesn't have to be well-known. Just what creative people do you admire and why do you admire them?
I think that anyone who worked on the Hindsight project in any capacity, I 100% admire them. Just because that was my very first project. And the way that they showed up for not just the vision and for the story, but also for me. Like, I noted that people cared about, yes, the vision, the project, the part of it, but they also were watching out for me. And so that was such a beautiful thing to experience, because it was, as my guinea pig, it allowed me to want to fight for that and fight for them in return. So, I guess with most people from that project, I still have a relationship with, like, we're actively talking and things like that. And I'm 100% rooting for them and 100% admire them. And then in terms of like household names, I mean, there's a list. I love Ava DuVernay for her educational way of handling things and tackling things. Like, you don't leave her film and you're not stupider. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, you
learn
so
something.
Much more knowledge. Yeah. And it makes you want to do your own research. And so that's a language that she's speaking that, like, on the same wavelength. I think I love Issa for what she has built and for how almost indestructible it is. Right? And I don't say that because, like, realistically, anything can crumble. I just don't see how her empire is, if that makes sense. She's built something so strong and fortified and authentic, and everyone loves it. So that's cool. I really like Steve McQueen, the director, for what he's been able to do with, like, the Small Axe series. That spoke to me on a very different level and allowed me to understand how to find my voice. Because I was looking at him and, like, just the entire series, you're looking at 5 episodes or films, however you want to refer to it. And there's this through line, and you can specifically identify the Steve McQueen in all of it. And I went, I want to do that. I want to be so identifiable in those things. And in turn, what else can become attached to that, right? That's my thing. And then in terms of just other people, I really like John Boyega for performance, for mindset, and then because him and Femi Ogun's own a production company and what they're about, I really like that. And I think that, I mean, I could go on for days with like really Jerome. Oh my gosh, Jerome for performance as well. Like if I were an actor, it would be different. But because I work behind the screen, I think that is a good
overview.
Yeah.
Have you considered acting, or like, do you act?
Well, no. So when I was a kid, I think I'm more traumatized. Not even. I've also healed. When I was a kid, I definitely wanted to be, but it was one of those things where like representation mattered because it wasn't like as popular when I was younger. I was just like, oh, I'm cool with that. But I did go to acting school. Yeah, 2 years ago. I went to the same acting school as Jean Boyega because I wanted to. Can't take all my cheat codes. I was trying to get connected to Femi Ogun because that man has keys, right? Yeah. And so, I was in acting school for 2 terms there, 7 months in the advanced class.
Okay, advanced, not basic, not the standard.
And it's because, the reason why I went was mostly because I wanted to, going back to the language piece, I wanted to know what actors were learning, because if I want to direct, I need to speak your language. And because I respect the art, I was just like, well, let me not just be on people's sets or be on sets and doing whatever that I think is right. Let me go learn what is the right thing to say to an actor or what words trigger an actor to do certain things. And in turn, it helped me as a director, but also as a screenwriter. It was amazing. But yeah, so like I did acting then, and it was great because first month I'm crying in front of the entire class. And I know why. It's not something I do. I don't cry.
Like you had to cry, or like you were emotional?
I was emotional. We were reading a poem. Nobody else is even this emotional, bro. Nobody else. And I don't care for poetry like that. But it was Mary Oliver's Wild Geese. And the first line is, "You do not have to be good." So you can only imagine where the rest of it goes. Yeah. It's this, the way Mary Oliver writes poetry, she includes nature. And so she's speaking about these things that feel so relatable. And I was just like, wow. And it just got to me. Mind you, the first 2 weeks of this poem, I was not paying attention. She told us to recite it. I said, I haven't read this poem. I don't know what we're talking about. But it was something like the 3rd or 4th week. And we're saying it. And I just choke up on like line 3. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And I'm just like, I know I'm going to cry before I even went up, because she goes, how are you feeling? I guess she could see that I was tense. I was like, I mean, I'm nervous. I'm nervous out of my mind because I just know what's about to happen. And so I thought that maybe because I said that out loud, that maybe I could like suck the tears out. They went nowhere. They came out, and everyone was like, Grace, that was such a great performance. I genuinely think that
they thought you were on command crying, or you really felt the emotion?
No, they knew. They knew it was good. I got so many compliments, and I was like, you guys are just nice.
I was screaming. No, you probably did that amazing.
Probably. I mean, I think that why I was proud of that moment was just because I got through it. I don't publicly cry, so to publicly cry and read this poem and stay in character and create a character or whatever, it was a moment where I knew that things were different. And it was honestly, that was one of the moments where I was just like, I understood why I was filmmaking, because I understood the language, I understood what was needed, and because I respected it. So I don't know, I just felt like I should get to be in this lane. Yeah. Right? I should get to be in this lane. And so I stayed.
Dang. So how often, I guess, do you diversify the type of movies that you watch? Do you watch Nollywood, country, American? What films do you choose to study, and why, I guess? Yeah.
It's definitely got to be mostly American TV, mostly dramas. I grew up on Nollywood films. So I'm telling you, I'd probably seen hundreds, right? Yeah. I understood that, but I will have to admit that stopped 2008-ish. So there is a leap in time. I don't know what Nollywood as an industry looks like now, but I have seen a couple that I really do I watch some Bollywood. I do like some Bollywood films. I just don't watch it that much. British television and film is also pretty good. Yeah. Wow. I watch a lot of Western TV and movies, you guys.
I'm screaming.
But mostly dramas. I've recently gone into action more, but it's it can't just be straight action. I don't care for straight action.
You want the dialogue?
Yeah. And it still has to be dramatic. Yeah. What I won't watch this is so terrible. I don't like comedies. I don't think they're funny. I think that like, and I understand that it's a respected form of art. Like I'm not trying to come at the form of art. They're not good to me. They seem very pointless. Like what did I learn? Right?
Yeah. You always want to take something away.
Always. That's why it's mostly British. Yeah. British and American dramas. Because I always want to take something away, whether it's about relationship, education. I guess family falls into relationship, self, nature. I'd watch anything that is in that vein, and especially if it's good, right? I don't necessarily like bad movies. Yeah, I don't like bad movies. But
no one does.
Yeah. Some people like bad movies, but yeah.
So then, I guess just when you're creating good movies, describe your state of mind when you're directing. So like, obviously the one where there was drama and people was not, but on a regular directing day when you are like, okay, today we're going to do this, this, and this, like what's all going through your mind when you're directing a piece?
For the most part, it's very structural. There's not a whole lot of like creative juices flowing in terms of like, now is not really the time to play. Like you have pre-production. Right. So like you have a shot list, you have things that need to be met. And it's because everything costs money, right? So it's I actually relate it more to like being a restaurant manager that like in order to get to the end of the day, right? In order to make your GM happy, to make your district manager happy, to make your staff happy, to make those who are dining in, what do you call them? It wasn't customers, it was someone else.
People eating at a restaurant?
Yeah.
I don't know.
In order to make all those people happy, right? In the same way that in order to make your actors happy, your producers happy, your cinematographers happy, you have to manage all of those. And so the question was like, what is a day like?
Or like, no, like what, I guess, or what goes through your mind when you are directing?
Yeah, to never allow my ego to intervene with the success of the project. And really not anyone else's ego. So that's one thing that I've like embedded into the beginning of a day. If I have an opportunity to talk on set, the first thing I'm like, just let all egos go out the door. We don't have time for egos. No. Now it's time to deliver the project. And that's why I say that like the idea of coming in with artistic integrity and knowing what it is that you want to say, if you believe in the story, then from hour 1 to hour 8 or 10 or 12, that's all that matters. We can be cool after this. We can beef after this, whatever. But for the hours that we are working, there is something that needs to be made. We've all said that it needs to be made. That's why we're here. So then let's just make it. And so as a director, it's just really, truly managing the set, like making sure that everything's moving the way it's supposed to, taking care of like your cast and crew. I'm really big. If anything, that is the one thing that you can't necessarily, like, yes, you can prepare for that beforehand, right? By paying attention to your cast and crew and their like patterns and things like that. But it's the one thing that like day of, you just never know what's really going to happen. You don't know what phone call somebody had before they had to come to work. You don't know what people are dealing with in that specific moment of life. And so really trying to be attentive to that and not being too harsh, not being too short. Just paying attention to those things.
Dang, that's good. Check your attitude before you.
There's not even attitude. Like literally I don't care who you are anymore, bro. We are simply just here. And I mean, of course I care, right? But like, I don't care.
I'm screaming. And then what would you say your why is for what you do? The why of why you direct.
Why I direct. I think for the longest, I don't even know if I really know that answer, but for the longest, I would have answers for why I shouldn't. And at some point, it was just like, but you know these things, but you do these things, but you invest in these things and you care. So yeah, actually, why shouldn't you? Right? Like it only makes sense that if other people also have the opportunity and if you feel called to do it, then do it. And I say called lightly, right? I'm not saying that there's this booming voice of God that came down and was like, and you are now a director. I'm saying that the way that it was brought to my attention, brought to me, it quite literally, like I saw my life flash before my eyes as I was watching art take place in front of me. And I went, that has never happened before. I've never seen myself so eagerly invest or eager to invest in something like that. Even in education or wanting to be a lawyer, like there's always a passion for it. I want to learn about those things. I want to disseminate that information. But there was nothing that drew me in like this. And it was after fighting it for so long that I was just like, that's crazy.
So it's very distinctive of like...
Yeah, because if you think about it, then I've been passionate about the thing for 16 years. What else has... LOL. Anyways, what else have I been that passionate about?
Yeah.
What else can I be passionate about for another 16 years, another 32 years, another 48?
32 is crazy.
People do it.
Yeah.
They're still going.
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, yeah, this is the thing. And it encompasses everything else that I've wanted to do. Like I said, education, disseminating information, all of that. Like I can still do that and it be done through film.
Yeah.
Whether I'm a director or a writer.
Yeah. Well, and then what would you say to like people who don't know their why, are trying to figure out that why of what they do or what they want to do?
Allow the process to process. It's a journey. I don't know. I don't know if the why will always be 100% clear as much as like if your instinct or gut or God tells you to act. You know what I'm saying? Like, like I think that, especially for me, because like God would create provision in a way that just didn't make sense. I got a lot of clarity for not even that. And this is crazy. Again, I'm not trying to put too much on something that isn't necessarily a thing. The first time I heard from God was regarding film. Like the first time I heard his voice very clearly. And so I was just like, oh, you know, and so it was also the affirmation to do the thing that I wanted to do. And so I was just like, oh, well, we here. The first script that I ever wrote, the first short that I ever wrote, I don't think I wrote it. And I remember, I sat at the computer and physically typed it out. But I remember like having to process the emotion that was tied into its hindsight. And it's a short film about grief and how friends process grief. And I remember sitting there and being like, I don't know how to process grief. I don't do that. I haven't been forced to do that. I've been relatively stoic actually when it comes to that. And so we learn differently. But in that moment in time, I was just like, God help me, because I am sad about the deaths that have occurred, but I don't know how to articulate that. And literally, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours later, things were on the paper. And I said, well, it wasn't me because I don't have the language for this. And I don't really remember like what the thought process was. Right. And so, that's why I'm just like, when things like that happen, I don't even know if I have time to really think about the why. I know it is a good thing to have an answer to that, right? But I wouldn't necessarily say that in the process of figuring it out, if you do not have the why, I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing. But definitely still listen, right? Because you don't want to be distracted. You don't want to take too many lefts. You don't want to end up in a space where you're not supposed to be. Yeah. Okay.
And then I guess, how would you go about evaluating what you've created, or how do you go about evaluating your product? Does that make sense? Or like,
yeah, it does. Okay. Well, what are you looking for? Just to make sure.
No, I'm looking for whatever you want. However you took that question, just answer.
How do I go about evaluating
your work?
Okay.
What you produce.
I think that before I go in, I have something to use as a measurement of success, whether that be the kind of response, or there's a project that exists that is similar to this and I want it to have the same kind of emotional depth, or I want it to resonate with an audience in a similar way. That is what I use to evaluate, because I can't lie. You watch a thing 50 times over, you write a thing 20 times over. I don't know how to evaluate this anymore, right? I also am surrounded by family who is not afraid to tell me that something isn't great. Thank God, right? Because like what I don't want to do is put things out there and say that they're great when they're not great. And so then also I allow myself to not be great. Because truth be told, it's work.
Yeah.
It's definitely work. And so when it just comes to evaluating anything, I think that certain products that I've made definitely were for a season. Not everything is made to last. I know that for a fact. But as I go in now, it's like, if in my personal life, I hold myself to a standard of excellence, if I hope that people also have a similar standard of excellence, then I know that I want my work to be excellent. What do I call excellent? Does what I do match up to that?
Yeah. Dang,
and that's really just kind of the end of it.
So then, do you think it's vital for some people to see their future? And would you want to see your future? So like, yeah.
It's funny enough. I ask to see it, but really I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. That is even crazier. The script that I submitted to AFI is exactly about that. It's about a girl who wants in on her future. Can't see it. And my resolution for that is that it's for your own good. That your future cannot help you. That you cannot access your future. If you could, you would mess it up. And then it makes me wonder, what would your future hold if you mess it up? Would you have one? Right? Or would you have to be like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want answers, sure. And I want things to be maybe a little bit easier. I always said I want to have the right resources and the right people around me. But I guess it's also okay to allow that to be a journey.
So you feel like no one should be able to see? Yeah. No one.
Would spoil the fun.
It'll ruin all the fun. The highs and lows. And what would your ideal role in life be? Right. Yeah.
In terms of film?
Sure. It can be film, anything else, or your ideal role in life.
Yeah.
Or what? Yeah. Then I guess the cliche first question of like, where do you see yourself, or where would you want to be in like 10 years, 20 years?
Let's speak on 10. In 10 years, what up? Golly, 35? Can you imagine?
So I guess what role would you want to be, or what would you want to have accomplished, or where do you want to see, or what do you envision yourself as in that?
That by then I would have created, I really hope by then things would have been in place for me to be recognized and to have resources. I'm not talking about like superstardom, household name, whatever. Yeah. I'm talking about amongst my peers that like, if my name comes up, they're like, no, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's talking about.
With respect, like that. Yeah.
And that's really just, I guess, in all elements of life. I really do want to be working in film. I want to be, but if I'm also an educator, it's not the worst thing that would have happened, right? It's still very much in line with what I've always wanted to be. And then on top of that, to be somebody's mama, somebody's wife, and to experience those things, and for all parts of life to be elevated by those things, to continue to experience God's love, to continue to walk in that, to continue to have a relationship with that, and to allow it to grow, right? So not necessarily continue on the same level that I'm at right now. But I'm really excited for what life looks like when I do have that kind of love from God, from a man and from children. Isn't that crazy?
Dang.
Life changes.
Children? I'm screaming.
But yeah.
Then, okay, then with that, like, the future life of the future Grace, how would you, in terms of your kids, like, have you taken into any thought of how you would introduce them to, is there like films that, okay, my kids are going to have to watch this film growing up, and like, and how would you approach, because I feel like directing is not an African household I want my child to be. So even how did you even like, was that accepted from your parents?
Oh, so I hid it.
Yeah.
Literally did not tell my mom at all what I was doing until there was a project that I could show her. Because I was just like, there's no point in telling her the idea. I don't got time for crush ideas.
Yeah.
You know how long we've worked to get up to this point? I just need to give her the final product and then let her talk about evaluation, right?
Yeah.
Because when she said it was good.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And nobody else told me nothing.
When your African mom tells you their work is good and it's not a doctor or lawyer, yeah, you're set.
But yeah, just like, and that's kind of just been the thing. So in terms of like, I guess having kids, I wouldn't push them towards the arts. It's not easy. Like I'm saying, like literally, why is my resilience built up this great? Mm-hmm. Only because I've been tried, right?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want that for others, although I guess it's a good thing. Mm-hmm. But if they were naturally drawn to it, I'd just let them do whatever. I really hope they're musicians.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I'm just so like, I think music is such I mean, not that they have to be like that. That has to be their career. But I hope that they like music just because I'm so intrigued by it. It's something that I wish I could do that I really can't. And so, but if they were attracted to film, sorry. It's hard.
I'm screaming.
Yeah.
And then like, so with that music aspect, with directing, do you even like consider the type of music? Like, is it like, what is the process? Like, as a director, what is your role like
in choosing that?
Yeah,
so,
like, do you choose the music? I mean, I know you do the scenes and everything, but like you format everything, right?
I mean, yeah, and so there's levels to it. On my level, for sure.
Yes.
If you are ran by a studio, probably not so much. But I think that. So for me, I don't think about it really before. The only time I really have music thought out before is when it's more like cinematic content. Otherwise, no, I don't. Yeah, funny enough, music and films doesn't resonate with me like that. It's just music, like as an industry that I like. But I'm excited, right, for the time where you can hire a composer who like builds the music to match your scene. Are you serious? Give me that, right?
Dang.
Yeah.
So then with that, what is your top 3 all-time like favorite films, like from?
That's crazy.
If there's a number 1, what's the number 1 of just like to quote unquote perfection, a perfect film?
So I'm about to break all your rules because it's about to be 4 and 2 of them already been
all right, go ahead. Do your thing.
So in no particular order, I think the series When They See Us by Ava DuVernay, French Kiss. Yeah. Small Axe by Steve McQueen. And then in terms of films, The Dark Knight and The Woman King. Right, so those are actually films. But that's why I said it's maybe 4. And that's because I think that the way that The Dark Knight handles themes is so excellent. Oh my gosh. And they take every cliche that you know and they just stomp on it and give it to you in a different package. And I think performance-wise, great, phenomenal. It sticks with me. I can watch The Dark Knight probably once a year. And that's probably the most for any film that I can watch.
Dang.
And then I really enjoyed The Woman King because of the boundaries that it pushed, because of the fact that it overcame. They said that it couldn't be done, and then it was done. The amount of effort that was put into the film. So obviously with Gina Prince Bythewood, Viola Davis, with them being involved, like I paid attention to the production of it a whole lot more. And I just think that what they've been able to do is just incredible. Yeah. Without any kind of like, I don't like talk about having to climb that mountain when you're Viola Davis and Gina Prince Bythewood. How does your ego not get in the way? Do you know what I've done? Yeah. Do you know who I am? Do you know how respected I am in my community for y'all to say that this can't be done, for it to take 7 years to get it off the ground? And then for the product to be what the product is. Really good. Yeah. So yeah, that's going to be up there for a while. And I can't wait till we get more things that are rooted in history, even if it's not 100% factual. Yeah. But to get more things rooted in that kind of history, and to really display the continent the way that I think it deserves to be. And I say that knowing that like the continent has its own industries, right? Like Nollywood is a thing, right? Yeah. I'm sure I don't watch other films in Africa, so I'm not going to pretend and lie. Yeah. But I say that knowing that they can produce their content and tell it the way that they want to be told. Right? I want us to have those kind of relationships and build those relationships in the way that we see that like American British crossover, right? I want to see that happen for other people because it's obvious that people have resources and other people have facts and culture and real life. And I want to see what it looks like when the two mesh.
Dang. So then with that, like, what, from your greatest fail, what have you learned from like one of your greatest fails? And I guess you can do accomplishment as well.
That's good. I think that like I'll say it this way, a failure that has taught me a lot, or what it has taught me is that this is a job. This is work. People truly want to do this for as long as they can. And the system in which the industry lives in doesn't really take a liking to long careers, especially if you look like me. And so that's one thing that I had to learn, I guess, the hard way. Just like, don't, in the same way that I would show up to Applebee's as a manager or to South Fair as a development assistant, like I would treat that as a job, give it, like, there are boundaries. Yes, you're a coworker. You ain't really like, we ain't cool. You're a coworker, or that there is, there are higher ups that you need to respect. It's the same way I should approach it with film. Just because it's an art, just because I get to be creative, just because it is a lot of fun, doesn't mean it needs to be disrespected by lack of boundaries. And so that's one thing. And in terms of an achievement or an accomplishment, I think there's a lot to choose from, which is so interesting that I say that. But and I say this knowing that I probably still have a lot to learn from this. Probably the AFI decision, just because how unprepared I was for that. One, I was unprepared to apply. I was unprepared to hear anything from them. I was unprepared for the decision to be waitlisted. Genuinely, I don't want to say I thought I was going to get rejected. I knew that I could get in. I just didn't expect it. And so when I was like, because I know that I can get in, but I don't expect it, like, that's why I was so much like, I know I'm either accepted or rejected, and that's it. And so to hear that I was waitlisted, it's been something that I've had to sit and really process, understand that it actually is an achievement just because of how many people apply versus how many get in. And then still just processing what that means, right? Life could look so different in 4 months. I may be in LA in 4 months. Girl. Maybe having my first class, right, in AFI. But for right now, what it's done is enough. Like, it exists. That decision exists the way it does for a reason. So whether it turns into you're off the wait list, let's go, or like, oh, sorry, nobody came off, I'm cool at this point. It did what it had to do. And so I think that the reason I call that an accomplishment is because it has made me want to change the direction in which I'm taking the craft. I no longer want to just do things. I no longer just want to get things done. I want them to be done and distributed
with meaning.
Well, right? I want them to be done and distributed well. It's all about that to be whatever it means to people, but yeah.
And then, okay, this is just closing remarks, and that's the last question I have for you. Unless you want to say anything more, is there anything that you want to say to the people? Any closing remarks?
I mean, I think that, this is good. Erica Alexander said it in an interview, so I'm just going to echo her. You have everything you need. You do. The end.
Mic drop. Amazing. Perfect.
The beginning. Oh, it's dry.
Has he been saving the other one? Oh, I took one off. I think I got good bits. It'll be fine.
Oh, we're recording?
Hello.
It's Artists with Locks.
Artists with Locks, yeah, the creatives. Locking it up. I don't even know where, but... All right, say bye to the people.
Bye to the people.
Say bye to people. You say bye to the people.
Bye, people. Bye. Y'all make sure you subscribe.
Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
it's like,
Make sure you
comment,
like the video, comment underneath, and subscribe to her channel.
hit that notification bell. Yeah. All right. Bye.